Hound, tell the hand that his king has asked him a question.
The king has asked you a question.
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 Game of Thrones questions answered in House of the Dragon.
Look at me. Your king demands an answer.
For this list, we're looking at lingering mysteries from Game of Thrones that were followed up on in its prequel series. We'll be sticking to the shows, so if a question was already answered in the books, it still qualifies here. Also, there will be major spoilers ahead. Are there any other Game of Thrones questions you need answers to? Share your thoughts in the comments. Number 10. Were the Targaryens the only house to escape the Doom?
Aren't you afraid of the Doom?
No. The pirates are.
We hear about the Doom of Valyria several times in Game of Thrones. 400 years before the show takes place, catastrophic volcanic eruptions destroyed Valyria. Most citizens and dragons perished, but the Targaryens knew to flee thanks to one of them having a prophetic dream. We assumed while watching the original series that they were the only house to do so, but that's not the case.
House Valarian's origins reach back to old Valyria. More ancient even than House Targaryen, according to some texts.
House of the Dragon features the Velaryons, another family of old Valyria that fled alongside them. Although the Velaryons are mentioned in A Song of Ice and Fire, they only play a small role as a house that supports Stannis Baratheon, so they were left out of the adaptation.
They'll bend the knee or I'll destroy them.
Number 9. Why did Aegon conquer Westeros? Many decisions on Game of Thrones are made out of a desire for power. We're told that Aegon Targaryen, who conquered Westeros and became the first ruler of the Seven Kingdoms, did so because he wanted to.
Forgive me, Khaleesi, but your ancestor, Aegon the Conqueror, didn't seize 6 of the kingdoms because they were his right. He had no right to them. He seized them because he could.
And because he had dragons.
Well, having a few dragons makes things easier.
Yeah, that tracks. However, while that's what Westerosi history tells us, House of the Dragon provides a different answer.
Our histories. They tell us that Aegon looked across the Blackwater from Dragonstone, saw a rich land ripe for the capture. But ambition alone is not what drove him to conquest. It was a dream.
Aegon had a vision of the White Walkers and their long night. It made him believe that Targaryens and their dragons needed to be in power when the time came. He passed the prophecy down to his heir, a tradition that is still in place during House of the Dragon.
This secret, it's been passed from king to heir since Aegon's time. Now you must promise to carry it and protect it.
Number 8. Who was Rhaenyra Targaryen?
Welcome back, Princess. Trust your ride was pleasant.
Try not to look too relieved, sir.
We'd like to go ahead and issue an extra spoiler warning for this one. Rhaenyra Targaryen and her family's civil war are mentioned a couple of times in Game of Thrones. In a spoiler-filled scene in Season 3, Joffrey gives Margaery a history lesson on the family and discusses Rhaenyra's fate.
Would you like to see where the lost Targaryens are buried?
Are you sure Lady Margaery doesn't find all this a bit macabre? Oh no, it's quite all right, Your Grace. I'd love to see their tombs, really.
The Dance of the Dragons is mentioned again in Season 5 by Shireen Baratheon.
What's it about?
It's the story of the fight between Rhaenyra Targaryen and her half-brother Aegon for control of the Seven Kingdoms. Both of them thought they belonged on the Iron Throne. When people started declaring for one of them or the other, their fight divided the kingdoms in two.
However, we never got any information on the character herself or why she felt entitled to a throne that was traditionally held by men. House of the Dragon finally gives insight into their actions, showing that she had every right to the royal seat.
Princess Rhaenyra.
I'm Queen Rhaenyra now. And you all are traitors to the realm.
Number 7. Is Harrenhal really cursed? Harrenhal is an incredibly dreary place introduced in Season 2 of Game of Thrones.
What kind of fire melts stone?
Dragonfire.
During Aegon's conquest, the future king roasted the castle with his dragon, cooking the lords who held it after they refused to yield. From that day on, Harrenhal was said to be cursed, as multiple families who held it met nasty fates.
It's built in hubris by Harren the Black as a monument to his own greatness. Blood mixed into the mortar. It is said to be a cursed place.
Despite its appearance and legacy, House of the Dragon shows it isn't cursed at all. Or at least it probably isn't. Larys Strong uses the castle's reputation to his advantage, causing a fire that kills his brother and father. Who knows what other atrocities have been committed under the guise of the curse?
I feel certain you will reward me when the time is right.
Number 6. How many dragons did the Targaryens have at their height? And we thought 3 was plenty. Prior to the Dance of Dragons, it's said the Targaryens were at the height of their power, with the largest number of dragons Westeros had ever seen. For anyone curious as to how many dragons that was exactly, Daemon spells it out in the Season 1 finale.
We have Syrax, Caraxes, and Meleys. Your sons have Virmax, Arax, and Tyraxes. Baela has Moondancer.
Daemon, none of our dragons have been to war.
There are also unclaimed dragons.
The Blacks hold 13, including some who are riderless, while the Greens only hold 4. Unfortunately, these numbers have already begun to decrease. Arax perishes at the end of the episode along with Lucerys when Vhagar chomps them out of the sky. Daemon also says they have 20 eggs incubating on Dragonstone, though it's anyone's guess as to when and if those will hatch.
Half of them never do, you know.
What?
Hatch.
Number 5. What happened in Essos following the Doom? Although the Doom and Aegon's conquest are spoken of in Game of Thrones, there's a period in between that isn't.
Fire and blood.
The Targaryens didn't simply go from fleeing the destruction of their home to conquering Westeros. Following the fall of Valyria, there was a period of strife in Essos known as the Century of Blood. It concerned the conflicts of Valyria's former colonies, which would become the continent's free cities as seen in Game of Thrones.
I've heard Marine has become a free city. You might run into trouble if you try to fight slaves in the fighting pits. Now, if you were to fight freedmen who would be paid a wage...
As House of the Dragon tells us, Volantis attempted to become the ruling city. Before he'd earned the title of Conqueror, Aegon flew Balerion the Black Dread to Essos to turn the tides against the Volantene.
A toast to Aegon the Conqueror, your exalted forebear, who joined our cause against Volantis in the Century of Blood. On the great dragon Balerion, he flew to our aid in Lys and burned a fleet of enemy ships, thus turning the tide.
Number 4. How much control did the Targaryens have over dragons?
Dracarys.
In Game of Thrones, Drogon is shown to be a bit temperamental before Dany becomes his rider. Afterwards, the two act as one, perpetuating the belief that Targaryens were masters over the beasts. House of the Dragon, however, calls that into question.
The idea that we control the dragons is an illusion. They're a power man should never have trifled with.
Viserys believes their sway over the dragons to only be an illusion. He's proven right in the finale, when neither Lucerys nor Aemond can gain control over their mounts. This could vary from rider to rider. Dragons often sense what their rider is feeling. For example, Daemon seems to have an incredibly strong connection with Caraxes, but saying the Targaryens could outright control them simply isn't true. Number 3. Where did the dagger come from? All Valyrian steel weapons are rare, but one in particular ended up playing a much bigger role than anyone could have guessed.
You're not supposed to be here. No one's supposed to be here. It's a mercy. He's dead already.
First used in an assassination attempt on Bran Stark's life, this dagger would go on to be used by his sister Arya to vanquish the Night King. Due to its role, and to it not being linked to any particular family, we wondered about the history of this dagger.
That dagger once belonged to Aegon the Conqueror. It was Aenar's before that. And before that, well, it is difficult to know.
It originally belonged to Aenar Targaryen, the Dragon Lord who fled Valyria with his family. More importantly, it passed to Aegon, who had it inscripted with his prophecy that would only show up in fire. In addition to the prophecy, the Targaryens passed the dagger down from heir to heir.
From my blood come the prince that was promised. And his will be the song of ice and fire.
Number 2. What started the Targaryen Civil War?
Dance of Dragons. Why is that a dance?
It's just what they call it.
Make much sense.
I think it's poetic.
As we all know, the Targaryen Civil War, or Dance of Dragons, was a war of succession between Rhaenyra and her younger half-brother Aegon II. Knowing it was a war of succession meant that King Viserys wouldn't be making it out of the first season alive. But things weren't that simple.
You hear by name Rhaenyra Targaryen, Princess of Dragonstone, and heir to the Iron Throne.
In House of the Dragon, Rhaenyra is all set to inherit the throne until the misunderstanding between Viserys and Alicent. Even when the Greens lead a coup and crown Aegon, Rhaenyra wants to avoid war and bloodshed at all costs.
Aegon.
Our son.
His dream. The Song of Ice and Fire.
Unfortunately, the death of her son Lucerys at the hands, or dragon, of Aemond seems like the catalyst for a lot more people dying. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. How did the prophecy survive?
In the ancient books, it's written that a warrior will draw a burning sword from the fire. And that sword shall be Lightbringer.
The prophecy of the prince that was promised was a major factor in Game of Thrones. First told to us by Melisandre, it told of a mythical warrior born to stop an impending threat to the living world. However, we now know that this prophecy was not just something born from Melisandre's religion.
When this great winter comes, Rhaenyra, all of Westeros must stand against it. And if the world of men is to survive, a Targaryen must be seated on the Iron Throne. A king or queen, strong enough to unite the realm against the cold and the dark.
Aegon had a similar vision and knew that the prince, or princess, would be born from his line. The prophecy survived by word of mouth. While the Targaryens passed it down from heir to heir, the Red Priests and Priestesses preached of it in Essos.
Daenerys Stormborn is the one who was promised. From the fire she was reborn to remake the world.
While we don't know how long it's been part of Melisandre's religion, Aegon's own dream lends it more weight.
Promise me this, Rhaenyra. Promise me.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.